On the 15th of February 1915, just over half the men of the 5th Light Infantry stationed in Singapore mutinied against their officers, following a lengthy period of really bad leadership. What started as a mutiny over the next 7 days became known as the Singapore Riots, which would see soldiers, sailors and civilians, and even a German internee killed in the fighting. Among those called in to try and quell the riots were the crew of HMS Cadmus. Cadmus was a sloop, a very undistinguished small little boat, which so far, the only part it had really played in the war, was to be sent to the Cocos Keeling Islands after the Royal Australian Navy, HMS Sydney, had finally put the German raider HMS Emden out of action. The Australian government, realising that they really wanted some souvenirs of the first Australian naval action of the Great War, by which time Sydney was escorting a convoy heading up towards Gallipoli, and there was no chance of going back to pick up some souvenirs. So the Admiralty sent Cadmus all the way to Cocos Keeling Islands to pick up some souvenirs, some guns and all sorts of other bits and pieces that could be then sent off to Australia and into this sort of the embryonic Australian War Museum. So Cadmus then found itself in Singapore just at the time of the Singapore riots, and the crew were sent on the streets to try and quell the riots and help restore peace. Amongst the crew members was one particular sailor whose name I don't have, but he was a great collector. He'd already managed to squirrel away quite a few bits and pieces from the Emden for his own collection. And amongst the bits and pieces that he brought back from the Singapore riots, amongst the pieces that have survived, are this rather nasty looking knife that he'd picked up, that he'd taken from one of the rioters, and this pewter tin, which was given by to HMS Cadmus from the Straits Trading Company, Singapore, February the 15th, 1915, in thanks to the crew of Cadmus helping to put down the riot. It's a very small moment in the First World War. It's one of those moments which very few people have ever even heard of. But the fact that, once again, soldiers, sailors and airmen collected all these wonderful bits and pieces mean that all these years later, we're still in a position to tell those stories.